it's amazing how much perspective one person and common sense can bring to a network like Scott Jennings does to CNN. Now, there's a few clips here. The timestamps are in the video. This was from a very, very long show of election night, so I tried to clip the best bits for you. Let's get started with our boy, Scott Jennings.
Trump voters didn't move over to Democrats. Now, you can. You usually do. But numbers are numbers.
I disagree, and here's why. It's a turnout game. And this is a condition of the Republican Party that is true. We now have a party that's made up of lower propensity voters. They tend not to vote when Donald Trump's not on the ballot. They turn out at lower rates, especially when elections are happening at odd times. And this is an issue the party's going to have to grapple with. Democrats have these higher propensity voters who turn out for everything. And I think it creates a mirage of what you just said, that maybe people are switching. I don't think they're switching. I just think the highest propensity voters are turning out. Democrats have a few more of those right now. I mean, that having been said, my advice to House Republicans right now is eat healthy, get on your treadmill. Try not to die if you live in a district that's any worse than either of these two between now and next November, or at least now in this summer when we got to pass a reconciliation bill, because it's thin margins. But the Republicans, I think, are going to hold this thin margin and hopefully hold it long enough to get Donald Trump's legislative agenda across the line.
That sounds like a diagnosis of someone who thinks you have some flipping voter. Presidential outcome, I think, is important.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, actually. There's always things to learn. And for the Republicans, it's a party of low propensity voters now. And so did any of them actually show up in any of these races in Florida or Wisconsin, or was it largely they just kept doing what they've been doing, which is showing up for Donald Trump and nothing else? That's one thing to be studied. I do think the Republican takeaways tonight are going to be this. In Florida, Democrats burned about $20 million on 2 congressional campaigns where both Republicans look like they're going to get around 57% of the vote. Yes, not as high as what Donald Trump got, but certainly commanding victories. Democrats were down in the low 40s, Republicans again at 57%. Wisconsin, the voter ID initiative that Donald Trump was heavily involved in and heavily supported, that's a big issue for Republicans and conservatives. Last I saw, it was passing at about a rate of 60-40, so they're going to like that. I agree with you that Democrats have a nice win on the Supreme Court here, called it early in the night. But for Republicans tonight, I do think a lot of people were sort of bracing for impact, that what was going to happen tonight, and what do we find out? Republicans are okay in their Florida districts, and voter ID is still a popular thing. There's a bunch of people that voted for a liberal Supreme Court justice and turned around and voted voter ID tonight in Wisconsin, which shows you the popularity of that issue, which has been a Republican issue.
Crazy when you think about it, that voter ID in America is a thing that we fight about on both sides. Nearly every democracy on earth, if you look at the image that's on your screen right now, has voter ID. How do we not have that? You need ID for everything. To drive, to smoke, to get a passport, to get a job. But yeah, you don't need ID to vote in the most important election of your country. Totally ludicrous. Now, let's get to a couple of other clips that prove Bakari Sellers is a nut job, and also that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is completely unhinged. Let's watch our girl Nicole crush these Democrats. Let's get it.
I think you saw a repudiation of the fact that Donald Trump got elected to seal the southern border and to reduce the price of eggs. Donald Trump has come to Washington, D.C. and flipped things upside down in a way that people do not want. And so today you had, I forget the department because they shut a new department down every day, but you had employees, I think it was HHS today, I can't recall, who it was at HHS.
At the health department.
Yeah, at the health department standing in line today, and they didn't know who was going to be hired and who wasn't. And so you can sit here and say that, oh, we're not going to cut Medicaid, we're not going to do this. But the people who are in charge of running those programs don't have jobs today. And so it's hard to effectuate and put those policies in place if Elon Musk is here running roughshod on the government.
Elections, it was 10-1 that the Democrats outspent the Republicans. And yes, Democrats are obviously more
in the Florida races.
In the Florida races, it's 10-1. So talk about buying an election. But you said President Trump was elected to secure the border. He was elected to lower the price of eggs. Guess what? Both of those things have happened. Mortgage rates have also come down. Oil prices have come down.
If you think the kitchen table issues today, if you think that people are sitting at home today and saying that their prices have gone down today, then you need to go outside and have these town hall meetings.
I'm simply saying that the egg prices have come down, the oil prices have come down, mortgage rates have come down.
Waffle House still has a 50-cent surcharge on eggs. Okay.
I went shopping the other day.
I think the other thing that's really important to point out is the referendum in Wisconsin. The voter ID referendum, which was President Trump's one huge priority for President Trump. voter IDs, and it passed by double digits, and that, I think, was also a very big win.
That is the definition of gaslighting, because what we're saying is all five of us on this set tonight can look you in the eye and say that if you committed any of those crimes, then you should be deported immediately. You should serve your sentence and go home immediately.
Yes, but they were let in.
I'm
That's the bottom line. You're more concerned about the one guy that was deported
first of all,
than the millions of people that were let in illegally that went on to wreak havoc in cities like mine.
First of all,
I think you're going to see those trade policies come, just like you saw at USMCA. And what I'll remind you is that the 2017 tax cuts were very successful.
The trade deal
created millions, created 7 million jobs. It brought unemployment to a record low, particularly for Hispanics and African Americans and women.
The record low happened under Joe Biden for African Americans.
But you got to be kidding me.
The 2017.
You got to be kidding me.
The record low for unemployment for Black Americans, what came under
You mean
Joe
when he
Biden,
turned the
Joe
lights
Biden.
back on after COVID, right? Because all those jobs were created under President Trump.
The number was
but he
just
doubled,
lower under
he doubled
under
the child
Biden
tax
than
credit.
Trump.
He doubled the
I know what you said about
I'm just saying that
other statistics. It's just that on that one, it didn't happen under Trump. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, if you're counting turning the lights on after COVID was over, that's a different story.
Nicole and I are on the same side when it comes to fighting the Castro regime, but yet we're seeing the Trump regime basically disappear people because they're not able to deport people.
That's actually offensive. Number one, let's not compare President Trump to Castro regime.
When you're deporting people without a process,
that's going to be very bad for you when you go back to Florida and you got to face your constituents.
Very confident that my constituents don't want people deported without a lawful process.
It is a feat of longevity, and I'm not sure what the point of it is. You know, he didn't stop any legislation. He didn't hold up any nominations. He said it was a moral moment. So I guess, you know, as a Republican, I infer that he thinks half the country is immoral. And that kind of messaging to me is exactly what's been plaguing the Democrats for certainly in the last election, in the last several months, is this idea that this hatefulness towards your fellow American just because they chose a different party or voted a different way. I mean, our own Harry Enton reported this morning that congressional Democrats have a 21% approval rating. So in some respects, there's nowhere to go but up. And Cory Booker, I think, is trying to fill a vacuum. There's no real leadership nationally of the Democratic Party. Obviously, they don't have any confidence in Schumer. They've had a lot of radical voices out there who are trying to take control of the party. So maybe this was an attempt by him to try to, wrest control of at least the spiritual leadership of the national party. I don't know if it'll work.
This is a rebuke. Let's just as some sort of referendum on.
Look, not really. I mean, I've been trying not to overread any of this, good or bad, for either party. I mean, it's an off-year, off-cycle, special circumstance. So the turnout is just so much different than a midterm or a presidential. I mean, my takeaways from the night are really, where do we go from here? The Republicans still have a small majority in the House. They got their wins tonight. That's good if you're a Republican. Voter ID, still popular apparently. That's good if you're Donald Trump because he was for that. And turning out these low-propensity Trump-aligned voters is still a major problem for the Republicans. That's bad. And so if I'm looking out into the future, the Republicans, have something to work with in the House, but also something to work on as it relates to the structural nature of how the party works now. It's a major flip. This used to be the Democrats' problem. You guys had the low-propensity voters. We sort of dominated in these low-turnout settings. Now it's the opposite. Lower turnout, better for Democrats. Higher turnout, better for Republicans.
I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow. And I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.